So what we see is an error here, and this error is saying that it didn't find it. So let's go take a look at the code to see why we didn't find it. And oh, I see what we did. If MWP equals null, so I just said if it was MWP, and that was basically saying if it was not equal to null. So basically, even though I found it, I threw an error. So we don't want that. Let's go ahead and fix that. We can now hopefully see that this clears up. Let's go ahead and clear it, and we will hit play. It's going to compile really quick. And there is an error that we're getting, which is saying that there are 2 audio listeners. And this is simply because when we create a new camera, it makes it a default audio listener. In essence, the perspective that it's going to get the sound from. So I'm going to turn it off on the mini map. We're not going to really listen to audio from the mini map. It would all be generated from the main camera. And then that will get rid of that error. So we should get a clean setup here, which looks good. And then we should be able to see our bounds for our objects. And then when we hover over it, it's disappearing. Now, why is it disappearing? Well, simply our hover color has an alpha of 0. So let's make it an interesting color, like, how about this light bluish, that color. Then we turn our alpha all the way up to 255 so that it's opaque. And then when we mouse over it, by the way, I had to click in here. When we mouse over it, we'll see that it changes colors. Okay. The moon doesn't do anything, but we could simply add a similar thing to the moon. We could just take the same script, the mouse hover over, drag it to here. Let's go ahead and set its color to be maybe red. And then we need to reset the planet's color because I did it while the game was playing. So it wasn't really recording that value. It just did it temporarily, which is not really what we wanted. And now, when I mouse over, this is red. When I mouse over, this is blue. You might notice that as I get close, it looks like I've selected it, and that's because this is bound by a rectangle. And the bounds are what are being checked for my intersection. So it's not a pixel perfect check. So let's be clear. You would have to do a little bit more work by transforming this mouse coordinate into image coordinates. And generally, we just don't do that many pixel perfect tests when we're dealing with 2D games because it's really expensive. You can imagine the number of pixels in here and trying to figure out if there's an intersection, how expensive that might be, because you're talking about having to look at thousands of pixels to figure out if the alpha of that pixel is opaque or transparent. So that's it for this video. Thanks, everybody.